Hi everyone, welcome to the third revision video. This one's on revising drafts for increased insightfulness, the I in the CRISP acronym, otherwise known as analysis. Probably the most important and challenging and sort of pesky of the things that you can revise for, but important and exciting, inevitable. All right, so insight, the I in CRISP is synonymous. I'm using them synonymously, using it synonymously with analysis. It's the same word. Insight, analysis, you could call it other things too. Analysis is the most important thing you can do in an analytical essay. Not really surprising. Or in your writing, in really many other kinds of writing too. In some ways it's easy to do, in some ways it's hard. Um, for some of us, it comes a little bit more easily than for others, like all things in life. The first step, like all aspects of the revision process, is to get to know how you approach this part of an essay, how you do it already, because we all do it already. We all have tendencies. You have to get to know the way you tend to analyze, the way you tend to apply insight to your essays, and then you can improve it. You also need to figure out for yourself when your insightful analytical ideas come to you in the writing process. So it might be in the brainstorming stage, that would be great. It might be while you're outlining, it might be while you're drafting your first draft. And it might also seem to be like a week after your class has stopped talking about the book, which is sort of frustrating. But there are things you can do. Just getting to know those things about yourself can help you tweak them so that you get your ideas in time to get them into the writing, the piece of writing in question. And then finally, you need to read the thing, whatever you're writing about, the text, carefully and fully, and annotate as you're reading, take notes as you're reading. Anything good you can do about a topic has to start with the reading about it. Writing an essay about a text that you haven't read, and this is my claim, and I mean it sort of gently, but sort of not. Writing an essay about a text you haven't read is immoral, disappointing, and lazy. It's lying. It's like trying to make a photo and video montage for a life you haven't lived. You can't read SparkNotes and write an essay about it that's going to be good. Can't do it and improve your writing. So if you want to improve your analysis and thereby your writing, you have to read the thing. Very important. Very simple. You just have to do it. So this video and note set will give you ideas as to how to increase the insight or analysis in your essays between the first draft and the final draft stages. So we have a bunch of strategies here. Strategy 1, be the adorable or annoying, depending on your perspective, kid who asks why. So truthfully, anything you're doing in the realm of analysis and insight in an essay is a dogged pursuit of the question why. So if you have an essay with lackluster analytical spots, or just overall you know you want to improve the analysis in it a little, you could lock yourself metaphorically or literally in a room with it, with each sentence in it, and ask yourself why after each sentence that you read aloud, and then not let yourself out of the room until you had 15 answers to choose from as to why that sentence is true, why the claim is true, why what you're talking about matters. You could finish out the why in lots of different ways, or just be that like stereotypical like little kid who just says why, and then come up with answers. Coming up with 15 is definitely hyperbolic of me to suggest. Not 15, but like one or two, and ones that are good that you can include in there. This is simple to remember and definitely a very effective strategy. Strategy 2, find weak spots and leaps of logic. So this is simple to remember too. Find the parts in your essay that are like not really quite clear, not really quite connected to your thesis. Then ask yourself why this piece of reasoning, this claim, whatever sentence or sentences you're talking about, is related to the central thrust of your essay overall, which will usually be a thesis. Then fix it by remembering how it fits in with everything else you're talking about and explicitly drawing the connection in the way of writing a sentence or two that you include in your essay. Um, and a lot of times this will happen because you've made a connection in your head that you haven't spelled out for the reader. So like we're thinking, we know what we mean, but we don't necessarily type it out. This is also how we wind up writing things that aren't clear a lot of times too, which is why we revise in general. Strategy 3, work the glossary of analytical modes. These are by no means exhaustive, and a lot of them overlap, so they're only meant to be helpful in as far as they can be, not something that you're ever going to have like a quiz on or that you'll ever need to really distinguish between in any kind of stressful way, just to the extent that they can help you by offering some different frames for how you could analyze. So interpretation, this is like the broadest one, I suppose, the explanation of the meaning of literature. And this one's very personal to each of us. We would all explain something in a slightly different way. Identification. So I'm defining these in a way similar to how they would just be defined in the dictionary. I think I did look them up in the Oxford English Dictionary and have those definitions help me in explaining them here. Identification, the establishment of who or what something is, or you could add more of the who or what kind of words there, just like kind of like categorizing. Analysis as an analytical mode. This is just like the broad one. Any of the question words, why, how, what for, so what, any like probing, go further kind of words you can fit into that category. Reflection, to think deeply or carefully upon, usually with some perspective or distance. I guess for some of us this can be done without really actually taking the perspective and distance and time. It can also help to have read it and then think back on it a day or a week later, but you can sort of get yourself into this mode sometimes even without taking the time. Generalization, to make a general or broad statement by inferring from specific cases. So to take something specific in the text and then go bigger with it. Declare something from this about all of humanity, all of whatever category it's operating in. Application, it's kind of like drawing a metaphor to apply an example from literature to another situation for the purpose of clarifying or illuminating something about it. Explication, you've probably done this with poetry. Poetry explication is a common task. To break down piece by piece, word by word, line by line. The size of the particle you break down by can vary, but just the close reading and breaking down of something. And synthesis is to piece one aspect of a literary work, in our case, with other parts of the work, so to combine into a coherent whole. We'll be doing this specifically in an essay towards the middle to the latter half of the year. Right, strategy 4, consider how the part fits the whole relating back to your thesis. Chances are your thesis, at least, is rather strong. Chances are you put enough work into that, got enough thought and reflection into it, that it's in pretty good shape. So most of us manage to get this far. And if you have a part of your essay that's not really clear, that's not strong, that's not analytical, think about why it's essential to your strong thesis, and that will help you bolster the strength of the sentence, paragraph in question too. Why is this part of the essay vital to my thesis, which I know is important and useful. Fifth strategy, improve precision of word choice or the sentence's claims overall. So 2 different ways to be more precise. Precise in word choice, easy enough. Precise in the sentence's claim, so just to go from, to become less vague, to make what the sentence is saying just like sharper. Often that will involve improving word precision too, but yes, they're slightly different and related. All right, so here's some practice. The first, just generally, I have some sentences from potential essays about Fun Home and The Great Gatsby. So even if you haven't read these works yet, which you probably haven't, just don't worry about being true to the novel, to the text, because you haven't read the novel yet. Just improvise a way to make these more analytical, better in some way, using the general sense of the strategies above or particular strategies. You don't need to be like really sure which one you're using. Just try to make these better, more analytical. Practice 2, your own analysis of these supporting examples that I'm giving you. These are from Song of Achilles by Madeline Miller, which you read in ninth grade, possibly. If you had me as a teacher, I think Kania might have taught it once. But I explain in the italics here what they're about, and this generally turns on the story of the Iliad by Homer, the story of Achilles, the Trojan War. But you don't have to worry about being true to the text again here. Just try to interpret them in some way. Even if you had never heard of Achilles or the Trojan War or anything, you could still do something with these. So there's three, A, B, and C. C is a little longer. Third one, I give you another example from Song of Achilles, and this is Odysseus talking to Pyrrhus, who's Achilles' son, who's a really awful guy. But you could analyze this just in and of itself. It's just like good stuff to think about. So run this piece of evidence, this example, through each of the analytical modes. Give it a whirl. Don't worry about them being that different. Just don't worry about like, is this reflection, is this generalization? Just give it a try. Just try to come up with some different ways of analyzing it using inspiration from those categories. And you might not be able to do synthesis if you haven't read Song of Achilles. Probably leave that one out. Give it a try if it seems possible. Don't worry too much about it. Okay, there's some help on analysis.